Understanding how melodies are organized makes them easier to memorize. Catch the rhyme there? This helps us make more informed artistic choices, whether interpreting, improvising, or arranging music. And in this live stream, we will identify some distinguishing characteristics that make melodies more memorizable. Okay, well, there are many ways to analyze a melody, and probably some of this who have been to music school have some scores with notes all over them and lines and colored pencils and all that kind of thing, where we analyzed a whole piece. But what we're getting at here is to analyze just the melody itself so that we could quickly memorize it in the same way that a violin player or a banjo player or a flute player or any kind of monophonic instrument would put together a piece that they could mostly know by ear and by heart. Let's say it that way. So there are many ways to analyze a melody, and some of those include analyzing the whole larger form, like it has an A section and a B section and this kind of thing. Another way is to look at the motivic development, the motives, such as, how those get played out through a piece and look for where those show up and things like that. And another way is to look at the chord-melody relationship. What notes in the chords match the notes in the melody, and what notes do the melody imply to suggest what the harmony would be. Those are all terrific ways to analyze a melody, and we're not going to do any of them. So what we're going to focus on is phrase similarities and differences. Phrase similarities and differences. Because what we're after here is just to memorize the sheer melody, to know the sequence of notes. And sometimes people memorize by tactile, muscle memory, and that certainly plays a role. But sometimes people also remember just a long string of notes. And you see, that is fraught with risk, because if one of those notes falls out of the pattern, we are kind of lost. And we have to go back and recover the last pattern that we remembered and so on. And then we get back onto the piece again. There's a better way to do it, which is to know how the phrases begin and end and how they're related to each other. And that way we can cover or cover up or recover as the situation demands. I see some smiles there from Diana, I think invented the phrase, the art of the cover up, which all improvising pianists do. I would say all pianists do it, actually. None of us pianists play everything the way we mean to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen while I play some melodies, and you're going to analyze those from specific questions we're going to ask you. And then we'll take a look at the written version of them and have our eyes to assist us. But just for fun, I thought we'd do this just by ear at first. I want to let you know that the examples I've chosen are numerous but short, and they're a little bit up-tempo. And I've tried to choose mostly singable songs, that are not 12-tone rows or, bump squeak music. Now, notate that, right? We're not going to do that. We're going to keep this in the key and all that kind of stuff. So I know that mostly pianists attend my events. So to make it a little bit more challenging, I'm going to play the banjo for these melodies. This is not just the banjo, just a little bit. I can't help the teachable moment. If anybody, just write in the chat, what do you notice about this part of the banjo that I'm holding today that makes it unusual? And not the melody name or the maker or anything like that. So how many strings are on a banjo? Just put it in the chat there. Right? It's known as the 5-string banjo, which this is not, right? This is a small banjo. It's a tenor banjo developed in the 1920s. And now it gets used a lot in Celtic music because it has a nice loud sound that will cut through the din in a pub where you have an Irish session. It's kind of like a big violin or a mandolin. So it's got the skin down here, has the twang thang. And so we're going to start out with a melody. And what I would like you to do is tell me two things. I want you to notice which phrases match in this tune that you're going to recognize. Anyway, let's take a listen. You're going to know this tune, I think, at least us North Americans probably know this. Anyway, so here it is. You're going to recognize it, but the question you're answering, and you're going to write in the chat area, is which of these 4 phrases nearly match, right? Which of them look almost, almost match? Let's do it again. Which match? And which are close? And which are different? All right. So, question is, which of these phrases match? So we've named the tune, and what we're after is a close match is good enough. Give me a nearly match. Which of those? How many phrases were there? Let's go with that. Put it in the chat. Third phrase is different. Charisse got it, right? 1, 2, and 4 match. Yep. So it was kind of like a race. And they just nearly match. And that's important, right? And then we also want to think about what is the overall form. And Charisse touched on that because it kind of has a contrasting section. So let's take a peek at this right now. And we'll see a little bit of an analysis that you might use if you were learning to play this. And you're just trying to memorize it. And so what we want to do right away is notice that this phrase and this phrase are actually identical. So maybe I'll make a little line here with the annotation. Let me see if I can make that look good. I can draw right here. So just a little arrow here if this works. There we go. Those are identical. Ooh, pink. I wonder how I picked that. These are almost identical. What's different? What's different is that ending note of the phrase. Yep. And then it's different from here, right? So we have, an A Henry dun da dee da do da da dee dee dee. Very similar, but they end on a different note. And those of us who went to music school would recognize that this really strongly implies a half cadence or a 5 chord. G da 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 D7 da 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 G, or a 1 and a 5 and a 1. And we're not after harmonic analysis today, but just kind of tuning our ears into when it feels a little bit up in the air. A little question there, a little sense of done. So you just want to look for those cadence points and then notice what's different and the same. And as Charisse rightly pointed out, this B section here, which is analyzed with classical analysis, we call this A and A prime because it's a little bit different. And then B is very different. And then we're back to A prime since these match. And HC stands for half cadence or 5 chord. And authentic cadence means 1 chord, ending on a 1 chord. And there's a little extra tidbit that's not all that useful, perfect authentic cadence, which actually doesn't apply here because you can only tell if that's the case if all the parts are present, like how the chords are played and so on. So there is the first tune. Let's move along here. This one, I just heard the other night. I was watching a documentary about the Civil War, and they were playing this in the background. And being musicians, you probably have the same trouble that I do. I love history, and as they were going on about the information that I was trying to learn, they're playing this in the background, and I'm struggling to figure out what they're saying because I'm focused totally on the melody behind it. The background, I see some nods, right? It's like musicians. It's a whole thing I could get onto. It does a disservice to music to always make it be behind the words. It says that music is less important, and to many people it is, but it reinforces that. Anyway, so here's a tune you might recognize from the same era. And the question I would like you to answer is just to comment on the overall form. How is this piece put together? What stands out to you if you were to memorize that? So let's have a listen to this. Let's get my bearings here. Okay, here we go. Something like that. You might notice that I always play a variation on repeats. I'm not a big fan of direct repeats, so I'm just throwing those in. So what do you notice? How's that piece put together? If you were to memorize that, it's called Red Wing, by the way. Red Wing is an old American song. Lots of broken chord tones. Okay, yeah, there's a good thing to hook into. So that's understanding the harmony. It's a very piano answer, and that's a good thing to hook into. Let's take a look at that. Here's what I just played. Boom. Right there is where we want to catch the half cadence that's suggested. You know, right there on that A. Here's a repeat on A prime. And there is the full authentic cadence. So we just want to kind of tune into where the phrases end and what are those actual pitches. And as pianists, we probably know that's a D7. So it could end on a D or an F sharp, or maybe a C in the melody. By just hanging on to those target notes in our learning, we can get there. Then in the middle, there's a B section and a B prime. Again, it's very closely related. So you notice that last little bit, of course, brings us home. Those are just the key points to grab onto, and you can fudge a lot of other stuff if you're in a tough spot when you're learning this. And how I suggest learning monophonic notes or tunes is to play them the best you can, let the mistakes happen in full tempo, and then notice them. Oh, I have a little trouble there. Then go back and fix, and then go back and play it in full tempo. Don't pause and play. Like, I don't know what this measure is, and I'm making it up. I'm just fudging, and then I get back on because I know where that cadence point is and what the melody is right there. And noticing that perhaps in measure 7, I had a flop, or measure 5, and I just noticed that, and then I slowly fix that, and then go back in full tempo. So we don't want to pause and start, because that wrecks our sense of time, and also kind of interferes with our ability to hear the form of the piece and where the cadence points are and where the overall feel of it is. Let's do another one. Okay, this one is another old American song, and here's what I want you to do. Where do the two phrases differ? I just want you to tell me what actually measure do the two phrases differ on. Let's just listen to the tempo first so you can get the tempo in your head. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Measure 3, measure 4, measure 5. Okay, so that's our tempo. And I'll see if I can play this the way it's written, though I rarely do. Here we go. One of the great licks of American folk music. Right? It's just a great little ender there. This, of course, is, well, you tell me, what is this name? Yeah, Bumblebee, Emily says. And that is how it's known today. It has an older name. In fact, this has been around since the Revolutionary War. Does anybody know the real name of this tune, which has since turned into a children's song? It's a fiddle tune. Okay? It has a state as the starting name. Anyway, it is the Arkansas Traveler. And that is mentioned in, actually might be Devil's Dream. It's mentioned in Thomas Jefferson's journals. But it goes way back. Let's have a look at that one real quick here and think about how we would learn that many noted tune. And so what I wanted you to tell me was what measure it was different in. What is different. I hope you're noticing already that very often it is that end of the phrase that sets up that half cadence point. And then and notice this one. This time, instead of just a very, very similar like Oh Susanna, now we have a longer tag, or almost like a mini second ending that brings us back home to this note. So I would note that as I was learning this. Well, that pretty much matches this, right? These are the same. So, but and a whole new idea. You know, which is that great American ending. It's, people tag this little cool lick on the end of all kinds of tunes these days. So kind of just hooking into the form. And then there's other things we could talk about, which we touched on in the beginning. The chords that it implies and things like that are all useful. But today we're just after the melody itself, just getting that, noticing the cadence points, noticing the phrasing, tuning into the important target notes. These are all techniques to get it going. Let's do some more here. It's a lot of fun. This one will be another one that I believe most of us will recognize. And so what I'd like you to answer the question on this one is comment on the fourth and eighth phrases. So comment on the fourth and eighth phrases, and also comment on what phrases match. And you can do either of those. Let me just tune this G. I think it's going out. Okay, yeah. I got playing low there. It didn't sound so great. Okay, so you're going to recognize this one. And the two questions again are comment on the fourth and eighth phrases, and maybe comment on what other phrases match. So everybody knows this one. Sarah's either putting her head down in disgust there, or laughing, or I know there's some gray hair here. Some of us have grandchildren in our lives, and probably you have a Jack-in-the-Box that plays this tune. Comment on the fourth and eighth phrases. Yeah, 4 and 8 are the same. Yeah. But what I'm trying to catch is this. Let me get my pick here. So now this phrase matches measure 1. The fourth phrase is a wild surprise. It's completely different, which of course is why this tune is stuck around. It's novelty. So the first tunes we looked at today, I will characterize as being phrase similarities that we've looked at. Now we're into a second zone, which I'm calling same and different. So there's a radically different phrase ending there, a little bit like Arkansas Traveler, but that queer little pop makes it, makes it pop. So, and we also could notice that the first and third phrases match, which is kind of one-on-one, but let's take a look at that anyway. Because these little things we forget to tune into, actually. So let's just make the comment that these two match, these first and third phrase. And this one is radically different. So a big surprise there. Notice also these match. So it has an interesting symmetry of two matching sections, but they're not the same ones. So that the surprise ends up getting repeated as well. Let's go on for a couple more. So let's take a listen to this one. This will be a little bit trickier for us now. Those of you who have left in disgust with all the nursery rhymes are going to miss this great moment, because we're going to have a listen to a tune that I was just memorizing the last 2 weeks or so in my practice. And it has a much subtler combination of phrases that nearly match. Well, just tell me what's going on. How is this piece organized? It has 3 overall sections. So it has 3 overall sections, and so it's a little bit longer. But what I want to know is, within those sections, how would we learn each one? You could comment on that, or also how are they related? So here's the tune. I'm thinking you probably don't know this. I'll tell you the name in a minute. That repeats. B section. B repeats. Here's C. mentioned that these tunes are meant to be played by ear and memorized. So why am I reading them? Is because I want to be accurate for the quiz we're doing. This is a tune I would learn from music, but then quickly memorize. So what are your comments on there? Yeah. How is that piece put together? What did you hear? What was the glue that kind of made those three sections come together? What did you notice? Just take it to that. Because it didn't jump out to me right away. And I see some tilted heads and crooked lips, right? Not really sure yet. And I was kind of almost hoping that, but I never sure. So nobody's stepping up. Let's take a look.
I was thinking that it was the motive that was the rhythmic motive, particularly.
Where? Can you say what measure that was?
Yeah, da-da-da-dum.
Yeah. Well, it's a jig, yeah, but yeah, okay, so yeah, let's look at this. There's a little trick in this long tune. And by the way, this is in sessions where people play entirely by ear. These are the things they really hook up on. So you have this little opening melody. So here's just an opening idea. Notice this matches. So we have two measures that match in a little bit. We've been seeing that in lots of tunes. We can make a little note on that, I suppose, that these two sections match. And notice that these two match as well. Okay. Now the B section has new stuff. Maybe I'll change color. Okay, that's brown. Okay, so it has new stuff. This and this match, right? What do we notice right here? This matches this. And this matches this. Probably didn't catch that. But even though it has three hunks to it, A, B, and C, it keeps having the repeating two measures there. Let's just listen to that for a second. And this is the key to learning this tune. Right here. Notice that it's also half an authentic cadence. Now, totally new section. Minor, but back to that. Now, whole new idea. But right back. So, people who do this, who play mostly by ear, and believe me, I spend a lot of time with them every Thursday night. We do this. This is the things they notice and pick up on like lightning. And as readers who plays complex music on piano, it'd be impossible to pick up a whole Rachmaninoff piece like this. But we can still learn the melody or the bits of it with these same techniques of noticing what's the same and different. And in this case, the difference is kind of interesting because the differences are on the main melody and the repeating part is on the little tags here. So once you uncover that, you say, gosh, this whole tune, if I have already learned this whole tune only has 6 measures in it. This matches that. So that's basically 1, 2. These match 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6-measure tune with the same tag on the end. Easy peasy. But at first it sounds like a million notes. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. So let's do a little bit more here. I would call that the first section we hit here today was phrase similarities. Then we did same and different. Tell me what the salient characteristic of this tune is. What jumps right out at you? And I'm particularly interested in the second half of it. So you could comment anywhere, but tell me what just jumps out about the second half. Here we go. What do you notice about that second half, right? We know how this goes. Sequence. Yeah. Sequences. Do it again. Let's take a quick look at that. And yeah, the sequence means a repeating figure that doesn't start on the same note. So here's the first half, and then we could make comments about how those are identical. It's interesting, just a quick side note. The arranger, because these are identical, instead of putting repeated marks, made this measure slightly different, which threw me a little bit when I played it through yesterday. Almost as if to say, I need a little difference on my repeat. But here's the sequence. Just looking at the top notes only. And very often, but not always, it's good to realize where the note that each sequence begins on. So here we have C, B flat, A, G. Just even remembering it starts on the fifth of the key and comes down the scale. C, B flat, A, G. Da-ga-da-da, da-ga-da-da, da-ga-da-da. Okay, is a way to hang on to that and also to remember how many they are. Otherwise you get this. Okay, and all of a sudden we're playing Halloween music. So you're right. See, this whole section we're going to call sequences, and let's listen to another one here. And this is the second half of Arkansas Traveler. And I just want you to listen to it once, and then actually I just put it on the screen now, and I want you to see what's going on with this sequence. Oops, I moved down to here. So we're just going right straight into the B section here. Let's have a listen to that. So again, we have the starting notes are right down the scale. A, G, F sharp, E, D. Knowing that, once we have the pattern, we've just learned it. Boom. And notice the fourth one's different. It inverts it. Da-ga-do-da-da-da-da. So here's a little mini sequence that goes back up, which we'll see in the next piece in just a second. We'll go a little over today. Here's your half cadence point. And then it ends, when you have a lick this cool, why, of course you would do it again. So that da-ga-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da is going to be repeated, because if having made this up, you got to do it. Oops, it's actually right here. You got to do it twice because it's awesome. Da-ga-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So look, learning this second half, I remember it starts on A. I let my ear remind me of the pattern. It has a little inverted sequence. It gets us back to E. We do it again and put the famous tag on. Boom. The piece is learned in half the time because we're using our knowledge, not just our muscle memory. Let me take this banjo off for a minute, as much as I hate to do it because I'm starting to like this sound. And we're just going to look at another piece here that's sequenced. So let's have a listen to this famous jazz standard. Wonderful jazz standard. If you're new to jazz, a good one to learn on. I'll play it twice through. Some of you know this from class because I know I have some friends here. So let's have a listen to that. To stop. Now I want to play and jam out on that tune. So I hope you notice the sequence here, but there's an interesting thing about this sequence that it is not just a short little pattern like we often hear in Baroque music, whatever, and it's much longer. Da ba da 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 da. It's that long, right? So we have this whole thing is a sequence, and then it starts a step down. G goes to F and repeats the sequence. Da ba da 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 da. So this is the same idea down a step. And then the first half of the idea continues the pattern. And then there's a little a little change here, which it repeats more or less 3 times. So once we know those chords and once we recognize the sequence, we can tune in to how it's put together and quickly learn it. What's interesting about this is down and then back up. All right, I'm going to show you one more on this in the thing here about sequences, except this one, I would call it more like a combination. So we're going to just take a look. We're going to start right here on this good old tune. I'll go to a ragtime piano sound. And what I want you to do or comment on, and you have to speak out loud so that because I can't see your chat at the same time, is this measure right here. I just want you to tell me like what is surprising or different about that measure right there. Let's have a listen to it. Great old tune. 2, 1. So somebody speak up. What's interesting about this measure? Going over just a little bit here.
The E7th chord.
Yeah, the harmony. But let's just talk about the melody. You're right, Diana. But when we compare this to this, this, and this, so let me just talk it through. Here's a sequence. Let's do it again. This time down a third, not a second, which is interesting. Then do it again. Then there's an inverted sequence. This is a mirror image, more or less, of what it started out with. So he has now turned to, and then the shape changes here. That's what I want you to notice. So we have this big broken chord, all broken thirds. So to memorize this, I would say do it again down a third, do it again down a second, go up a note and play it backwards, and then play a new shape. And that's pretty much the whole tune. These are not strict observations, like is it an exact inversion? Is it, the sequence is 100% matching? It doesn't matter. We just want to latch on to anything we can to make this be more than just a total collection of random notes. Now, one more thing. I wanted to just comment for a second on classical music, because that's what a lot of us as piano players play. And my comment is that these similar observations can be applied to classical music, but you have to be aware that classical composers take these folk approaches and extend them with like motivic development or development of a sonatina or changing keys or modulating, because classical music is more changing than these repetitive songs meant to be sung or played or learned in a folk setting. So if we just look at this, let's go back to piano. If this were a folk tune, it would probably do the same thing again, perhaps with a little different ending. Right? Because that would keep things consistent. But Clementi, following these same ideas, because it's a sonatina, changes keys instead. And now, in a folk idiom, it would be similar, but he goes into moves it. So he took us to a new key, which is what sonatinas do. So my point is simply that these observations are applicable to composed rather than folk literature as well, but they're going to have some quirks and wrinkles to it. Let's do one more here. Tell me about the starting notes, and then of this piece, the starting notes of these sequences that Mozart uses. Just what do you notice? If you're going to memorize this, what do the starting notes of each sequence tell you? I'll put it back in our ear by playing it here a little bit. I because I just can't. It sounds bad if I don't. I was just thinking about Hello, My Baby. We could do that to this. Sorry, what did you notice about the starting notes there? Just speak up.
They moved up by thirds.
They did. And just taken as a whole, we have B, D, F, B. What chord does that spell? B, D, F, B.
B, D, F, B. It's a B. Sure. It's an F sharp, right?
No, it's just a B diminished.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay, so it's a B diminished seventh.
And a B, it's just B diminished, B, D, F, but if it had a seventh, B, D, F, G sharp.
Right.
And then that's what he's doing. He's outlining, and because look, the second note picks up the G sharp. B diminished, A. So anyway, I would just say to myself, memorizing this, you do that little figure starting on the notes of the B diminished chord. And the left hand, of course, is easy because it's a bunch of A minor for the most part. So the point is, these things can be applied to a classical music as well, but I think they're best learned and understood in a more of a folk environment because the tunes are a little bit more predictable and therefore your observations are more likely to click. And then having become a little better at that as teachers and musicians, we make those same observations to a classical setting, but with the understanding that it'll be extended a little bit. My takeaway would be this: to memorize melodies more easily, pay attention to what's similar or different between phrases, and notice cadence points even in the absence of chords. And until next time, enjoy your creative music making journey. Great to see you. Bye for now.